Chapter 91 Ice and Fire Two Eyes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 91, The Ice and Fire Yin Yang. Well, the mountain wind whipped at Dai Yao's blonde hair. Hearing Dugu Bo's words, Dai Yao's lip curled into a sneer. Really? Every time it rains, you get numbness and itching in your ribs, right? It gets worse each time and lasts at least an hour. And every night, you get tingling pains in your head and the soles of your feet for at least half an hour, with cramps all over your body. I don't even need to describe the agony, do I? Dai Yao smirked. He didn't remember all the specifics of the original story, but he had a general idea. Dugu Bo's pupils shrank. How did you know that? He blurted out. Dai Yao's vivid description hit Dugu Bo's biggest secret, one he'd never even told Dugu Yen. How could he not be shocked? Murderous intent flashed in his eyes, his immense soul power erupted, causing the trees in the surrounding valleys to rustle. Dai Yao, standing closest, spat out a mouthful of blood but still managed a contemptuous smile. Heh, don't worry about how I know. Since you want to kill me, I won't tell you a thing. You'll die in despair and pain. Too bad your granddaughter might not even outlive you. Her attacks will be even worse because she's been marinating in that toxin since birth. Go ahead, kill me. I'll be waiting for you down below. You won't last long. Dai Yao's eyes widened in fury as he roared. Dugu Bo's eyes flickered as he considered Dugu Yan's future. His gaze dropped, lost in thought. The wind rustled their clothes. Finally, his eyes snapped back to Dai Yao. With a cold snort, he turned and strode into the cave, grabbed Dai Yao by the neck, and tossed him inside like garbage. Not bad, kid. You know too much, he said coldly. Even now, you won't tell me how you're immune to the green-scaled snake's venom. Guess you never will. Dai Yao coughed, clutching his neck, and glared at Dugu Bo. In this situation, there was no point in holding back. Why haven't you killed me? What do you want? If you want to know what I want, come with me. Dugu Bo put his hands behind his back, floated into the air, and took off toward the depths of the valley. Don't even think about escaping. This is Sunset Forest, crawling with soul beasts over 10,000 years old. Wandering around out here, you're as good as dead, Dugu Bo said dismissively. Dai Yao wasn't afraid of death. The fact was, the green scales and purple poison had no effect on him, and he stubbornly refused to explain why. If Dai Yao couldn't satisfy him, he was just useless baggage, and baggage with potential, at that. To prevent future revenge, he'd have to be eliminated. Forcing Dai Yao to follow him was practically a death sentence. How could Dai Yao keep up with him flying? And on the ground, he'd be monster chow. He was trying to force Dai Yao to give in. Only after giving up could he get Dai Yao to agree to his demands. Dai Yao scoffed, understanding Dugu Bo's plan. Just now, his soul power was flowing like molasses. With a burst of energy, his martial spirit surged, and a pair of snow-white wings sprouted from his back. He angled his wings toward Dugu Bo and launched himself off the cliff, gliding toward him. His wings weren't strong enough for true flight, but gliding was doable. A tiger's roar echoed through the world, startling Dugu Bo. He looked back and saw Dai Yao's wings carrying him through the air. What kind of martial spirit is that? Even as a title Douluo, I feel some pressure, Dugu Bo thought in surprise, then he sighed. This kid's full of surprises. If he still doesn't crack, this could get difficult. Soon, the terrain began to rise. Dai Yao could no longer glide and had to land. Dugu Bo landed in front of him. Follow me, Dugu Bo commanded. Dai Yao settled down, getting a sense of déjà vu. Without hesitation, he gathered his soul power and followed Dugu Bo. He wasn't naive enough to think he'd be free once they left the cave. Escaping from a title Douluo was a joke. They plunged through the dense forest. Under Dugu Bo's heavy pressure, no soul beast dared to approach. Finally, as the terrain climbed higher, Dugu Bo led him to the mountaintop. The sight that greeted Dai Yao made him gasp. The mountaintop was a giant, inverted cone, like a volcanic crater. Dai Yao stood on the edge, looking down into the shrinking space. At the bottom of the cone, a distinct blue and red area swirled together, like the yin and yang symbol, steaming constantly, the pungent smell of sulfur filled the air, and Dai Yao's pupils shrank. He exclaimed, "The ice and fire yin yang well." Dai Yao was thrilled. Now he knew why this place felt so familiar. It was the ice and fire yin yang well from the original story. It was one of the 3 cornucopias mentioned in the Tang sect's secret texts. Countless rare plants and fairy herbs grew there. In the original story, Tang Sen used the well's immortal herbs to supercharge all the Shrek's 7 devils, giving them a huge advantage in the Continental Advanced Spirit Master Academy Elite Tournament. Using these herbs, Dai Mubai and Zhu Zhuqing solved Ma Hongjuan's inner fire problem, and Ning Rongrong upgraded her martial spirit from the 7 treasures Glazed Tile Pagoda to the 9 treasures Glazed Tile Pagoda. Of course, only the Shrek 7 devils took the herbs. Yu Shaojiang and the others didn't. The most precious herbs were the ones growing right at the center of the well, the star anise ice grass and the octagonal ferocious apricot. After Tang San took these 2 herbs, he gained immunity to both fire and ice. The ice and fire yin yang well. Hearing Dai Yao's outburst, Dugu Bo looked surprised and repeated the phrase. Then, he praised, "The ice and fire yin yang well, not bad. You named this place at a glance. Do you know this place?" Realizing his mistake, Dai Yao quickly regained his composure, coughed, and said, "No, I just saw the blue and red forming a Tai Chi shape and said the first thing that came to mind." Dugu Bo gave Dai Yao a suspicious look but didn't dwell on it. He put his hands behind his back and said calmly, "Go down." He leapt over the edge, taking a few steps down the steep cliff. With a little help, he reached the bottom. Staring at the yin and yang pools, Dai Yao struggled to contain his excitement, but the gravity of his current situation quickly brought him back to earth. Composing himself, he activated his martial spirit, jumped, and glided down toward the ice and fire yin yang well. Chapter 92 Ice and Fire 2 Ritual Forged God Foundation, 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 92, Ice and Fire Rituals Forge a Divine Foundation. Alright, kid, your life hangs on the next choice you make. Dugu Bo's voice was raspy, laced with ice. Tell me what I need to do, Dai Yao said, his nerves tightening, realizing his survival depended on it. You're not willing to share how you're immune to the green-scaled snake venom. Fine. I won't press it. But I need to know, can that immunity be passed on? Dugu Bo's gaze was a cold, hard stare. Dai Yao stalled, touching his chin, eyes darting around, thinking hard. Dugu Bo's patience wore thin quickly. Finally, Dai Yao said, I think so. You think so? Dugu Bo raised an eyebrow, his mouth twitching, beard trembling. Kid, lying to me is a death sentence, got it? Dai Yao's palms were sweating. I know. The truth was, his immunity came entirely from the Chaos Green Lotus in his spiritual realm. He wasn't sure he could channel the lotus's light to someone else. But given the situation, he had to say yes. Dugu Bo scoffed, eyeing Dai Yao with suspicion. If you know about the poison built up inside me, then try and detoxify me. Dai Yao felt a jolt of fear. Guiding the green light into a tidal Douluo was risky. Dugu Bo might detect the lotus's power. If Dugu Bo got too curious, it was only a matter of time before the Chaos Green Lotus martial spirit was exposed. Dai Yao cleared his throat, met Dugu Bo's green eyes, and forced himself to stay calm. My lord, detoxifying you would require me to channel my soul power into you. You know the risks of a soul master doing that. Allowing unfamiliar soul power into your body meant opening yourself up, revealing everything. Life and death rested in the other person's hands. Even couples rarely did it. Dugu Bo was a tidal Douluo. Even if Dai Yao detonated his soul power inside him, it wouldn't be fatal, but it would definitely do some serious damage. Usually, if soul power was transmitted between soul masters, it was either because they were incredibly close or one completely controlled the other. A controlled soul master transmitting soul power back to the controller? That was unheard of. Dugu Bo's eyes flickered. He paused, thought for a moment, and finally warned, you better not be playing me, boy, or your death will be agonizingly slow and ugly. Dai Yao countered, I wouldn't dare lie to you, but if you're not going to let me detoxify you, how can I prove I can do it? Dugu stroked his pale beard, turned away, leaving Dayao hanging. After a long pause, he turned back. Fine. You can't detoxify me. Then you can detoxify my granddaughter. But understand, I'll be watching. Don't even think about getting any wrong ideas. It'll be the last thing you ever do. And don't even think about escaping. You're surrounded by soul beasts with thousands of years of power. With your strength, you'll be nothing more than food for them if you try. Dai Yao's heart skipped a beat. He nodded slowly. If he was detoxifying Dugu Yen, the chances of the blue light being detected would be far less. Seeing Dai Yao nod, Dugu smirked. With his hands behind his back, he stroked his beard, subtly channeled his soul power, made a light jump, landed on the cliff face, and used the momentum to bound out of the inverted cone-shaped mountain pass. As soon as Dugu was gone, Dai Yao collapsed, breathing heavily. He'd just been facing off against a tidal Douluo. Even without releasing his soul power, his presence was immense, far beyond what a great soul master could withstand. After a few breaths, he calmed himself and took in the sight of the spirit herbs all around him, especially the blue-red ones at the fisheye points of the yin-yang well. He was electrified. These two herbs were what set Tang San on the path to becoming a god. Without them, Tang San wouldn't have had the physical strength to absorb a 10,000-year soul ring at the 4th level. He would have continued to be plagued by injuries in future battles, still reaping the benefits of these herbs. The eyes of ice and fire were a unique place, filled with immortal herbs rarely found elsewhere. But it was also treacherous, full of hidden dangers. Many of the herbs were highly poisonous, enough to taint the air itself. One wrong step, and you were dead. Looking around at the spirit herbs, Dai Yao felt a wave of helplessness. He didn't know any of them. He couldn't tell the poisonous ones from the safe ones. Suddenly, an idea sparked in his mind. The original novel mentioned one poisonous herb, didn't it? The Youxiang Qilua immortal herb. If he could find that herb, he could practically walk around sideways in the eyes of ice and fire, without having to worry about the poison of other spirit herbs. Racking his memory, the Youxiang Qilua immortal herb looked like a giant flower. Leafless, and clear as crystal. What else? Fragrance, fragrance. That's it. The most obvious thing about this herb is its fragrance. He realized. His eyes darted left and right, searching. At the edge of the eyes of ice and fire, he spotted a herb that matched the description. If he could just get close enough to smell it and see if it had a delicate fragrance, he'd be almost certain it was the Qilua immortal herb. Dai Yao grinned and stood up. Just as he was about to head towards the herb, his heart lurched and his hair stood on end. Danger. He quickly scanned the surroundings, but found nothing. If the threat wasn't environmental, then it had to be a person. He quickly sat back down cross-legged and pretended to be meditating. He and Dugu were the only ones here. That meant Dugu hadn't left. He was watching Dai Yao, waiting for him to slip up. Close call. That old fox. If I hadn't learned to be careful after 6 years in the cold palace, I wouldn't have sensed anything was wrong when I stood up. I'd be facing Dugu again right now. Dai Yao thought. So, what gave me away? He carefully replayed the events from his capture to the present, and realized one possibility. His eyes widened. That's it. When I got here, I blurted out the name Eyes of Ice and Fire. That must have made Dugu suspicious. Remaining cross-legged, still pretending to meditate, Dai Yao smirked. You want to play the waiting game? Let's see who breaks first. That when he was training, he sat under the waterfall for entire days. He was confident in his ability to focus. Up on the mountain pass, where several large rocks were stacked, a pair of green eyes appeared. It was well hidden. Looking up, Dai Yao couldn't possibly see them. Chapter 93 Ice and Fire 2 Ritual Forged God Foundation, 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Edited content, Chapter 93, The Ice and Fire Rituals Forge a Divine Foundation. Something's up with this kid, isn't there? Behind the boulder, Dugu stroked his thin beard, his eyes narrowed. Ever since he left, Dai Yao had been resting, then getting up, adjusting his position, and practicing cross-legged, acting like everything was perfectly normal, but for some reason, Dugu couldn't shake the feeling that Dai Yao was hiding something. Whatever. I've got him right where I want him. No matter what secrets he's keeping, I'll dig them out. Dugu clenched his fist, thinking fiercely. Still, gotta give him credit. He can actually focus on training in this kind of environment. Heard he's pretty talented too. If he really can detoxify Yenner, he wouldn't be a bad match for her. Dugu peeked through the cracks in the rocks at Dai Yao, a tiny figure far below. A hint of appreciation flickered in his eyes. As long as he can cure Yenner, I don't care if he lives. If this damn Bylin curse is lifted for good, I won't have to force Yenner on the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus clan anymore. And I won't have to worry about my enemies targeting her after I'm gone. Nodding to himself, he channeled his soul power, crouched low, and with a powerful thrust, launched himself into the air like a bolt of lightning, breaking the sound barrier with a sonic boom. Sensing the surge of Dugu's soul power and hearing the explosion moments later, Dai Yao let out a sigh of relief. Then, he immediately tensed up again. Did he really leave? Or is this another fake-out, trying to get me to crack? Dugu Yen should be in Tiando Imperial City right now, but damn it, he had no idea how far that was from here. Otherwise, he could calculate how long it would take Dugu to go back and forth. He needed to absorb the star anise ice grass and fiery apricot, ASAP. If Dugu came back early, he could always dive into the ice and fire well to buy some time, but if Dugu returned before he'd finished absorbing them, and if he couldn't transfer the poison to someone else to detoxify Dugu Yen, then he was basically toast. The fear that Dugu was playing him was eating him up, clouding his mind. I'll wait 5 more minutes. If he doesn't show, I'm grabbing the Yoshiang Chilua Immortal first, then going for the star anise ice grass and fiery apricot. Dai Yao clenched his fists, his mind made up. 5 minutes passed. Okay, 4 more minutes. Just 1 more minute. 1 minute later, Dai Yao exhaled and opened his eyes. No more waiting. Dugu's been gone too long. He has to be gone. Either way, I'm dead if I don't absorb those fairy grasses. Might as well get it over with. He stood, carefully avoiding the other plants, and made his way to the big flower. A faint fragrance wafted over, invigorating him, lessening the discomfort he felt in the ice and fire. His face lit up. This has to be the Yoshiang Chilua Immortal. He couldn't remember exactly how to pick the Yoshiang Chilua Immortal. Messing it up could destroy the plant. Gritting his teeth, Dai Yao started digging around the Yoshiang Chilua Immortal with his bare hands, carving out a wide circle. After a while, he managed to unearth the entire plant, dirt and all. He remembered the star anise ice grass and fiery apricot required special techniques to harvest, and right now, he didn't have the luxury of careful methods for the Yoshiang Chilua Immortal. After thinking for a second, he stuck the earthy Yoshiang Chilua Immortal on his head, securing it with his hair. He ran and jumped a little to make sure it wouldn't fall off, then turned his attention to the fairy grasses growing between the hot springs. A grin spread across his face. Here I come, my lovelies. Activating his martial spirit, he spread the wings on his back and easily flew to the strip of land between the blue spring. The star anise ice grass grew here. So cold. Dai Yao stared at the blue spring water in horror. Even a powerhouse like him could feel the bite of the cold. That showed how frigid it was. Shaking his head, he pushed the thought aside, focused his soul power to resist the chill, and concentrated on the large octagonal flower in front of him. He remembered that the star anise ice grass and the fiery apricot required specific harvesting techniques. Oh, well. He couldn't remember them anyway. He was just going to dig them all up, dirt and all. He held his hands together, forming a shovel shape, and plunged them into the ground around the star anise ice grass. Hiss, that hurts. Dai Yao's face twisted in pain, his hands shaking. Because of the octagonal black ice grass, the surrounding soil was as hard as iron. When Dai Yao slammed his hands into it, it felt like hitting solid steel. Damn it, I'm not giving up. Pain shot from his fingertips into his heart. Enduring the agony, a bone-chilling cold seeped down his fingers and into his body. Dai Yao shivered uncontrollably. Qinglian. Give me Qingguang. In his spiritual world, the green lotus swayed, emitting a blue light that flowed through Dai Yao's meridians, gradually driving the cold out of his palms, but his hands kept slamming against the unyielding ground, sustaining constant injuries that even the green light couldn't fully repair. After what seemed like an eternity, a deep pit appeared, filled with mud, blood, and water. He was just inches away from freeing the octagonal black ice grass. Ha! He wiped the sweat from his forehead with his arm, breathing hard. His hands were a mess, fingernails were missing, skin was torn and caked with mud, and blood streamed from the wounds. Under the soothing influence of the blue light, his palms slowly healed. The pain of regrowing fingernails was almost unbearable. While he couldn't remember how to harvest the 2 jelly grasses, he did recall that they had to be consumed together, within 10 breaths of each other, otherwise, they would lose their potency, leaving the nearly uprooted black ice grass where it was. He adjusted the flower on his head, summoned his martial spirit, spread his wings, and flew to the land between the red spring. The fiery apricot grew here. So hot, Dai Yao felt an entirely different sensation from the blue spring water. The red spring water was so hot it felt like his body was about to burst into flames. Gotta hurry, Dai Yao's expression turned grim. Luckily, the land around the fiery apricot tree was softened by the intense heat. In short order, he had managed to almost completely dig up the plant, which looked like a head of cabbage. By now, his hands were charred black by the heat, and it smelled like something was burning. His eyes flickered over to the nearly freed black ice grass not far away. Almost there, with one hand, he scooped up the earthy fire apricots. Spreading his wings, now flickering with flames, he carefully maintained his balance to keep the Yoshiang Qilua immortal on his head from falling off, and quickly glided back to the octagonal black ice grass. He scooped up the octagonal black ice grass, flew to the edge of the ice and fire well, held the 2 grasses in the same hand, lowered his head, and yanked the fragrant Qilua immortal off his head. A sharp pain shot through Dai Yao's scalp, and he felt like he ripped out half his hair. Along with the Yoshiang Qilua immortal, looking at the scorching grass in one hand and the freezing grass in the other, he knew he couldn't hesitate any longer. He shoved both grasses into his mouth, dirt and all, and swallowed. Chapter 94 Ice and Fire 2 Ritual Forged God Foundation, 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Edited content. The earthy taste was incredibly bitter. 2 highly poisonous fairy grasses melted in my mouth, turning into fluids that slid down my throat straight into my gut, which helped cut through the dirt-like bitterness. I fought the urge to cough, swallowing every bit of the dissolved mess. Within seconds, my body began to tremble uncontrollably. Red and blue flickered across my skin as frost formed on my feet one moment and flames erupted the next. The surroundings reacted intensely, making me imagine the hell my body was going through. The opposing forces of ice and fire surged through my meridians, causing excruciating pain in my organs. But, for me, this wasn't new. I'd felt this kind of agony twice before. Each time I absorbed a soul ring that exceeded my limits, I endured even more intense and prolonged suffering. Thanks to Qinglian's green light, my meridians have been continuously widening and strengthening, making me somewhat resistant to this level of pain. Even so, the pain from absorbing the grass jelly made me shake and left me feeling utterly drained. Right. I can jump into the ice and fire well to ease the pain. Seeing the icy blue spring water, I remembered a trick from the original story. I stripped off my clothes and plunged into the well with a splash. Even a tidal Douluo would struggle to survive falling into this place. I'd copied Tang San by absorbing these 2 immortal grasses as a safety net. If Dugu broke his promise, I could hide in the well to buy time. Even the spirit hall coveted my talent. News of my disappearance would definitely trigger a hunt. I figured that with their resources, the spirit hall would find out who snatched me. If I could stall them long enough, my chances of survival would increase. Hours later, a head popped out of the water, golden hair plastered to the cheeks. Finally absorbed them, I spat out a mouthful of red spring water, relieved. These fairy grasses were the real deal. My body felt lighter, my senses sharper. Even the dry, blonde hair I'd had for 6 years looked shiny and full in my reflection. Too bad my soul power didn't improve. I thought glumly. The star anise ice grass and Liehua Xingjiashu weren't about boosting soul power directly. Their medicinal properties were slowly settling into my meridians and bones. The benefits might not be obvious right away, but they'd accumulate over time, far outweighing a few levels of soul power increase. Still, there were immediate benefits. Inside the well, I no longer felt any pain. To me, the cold Yin spring was just cold water, and the hot Yang spring was just warm water. The poisonous springs no longer harmed me. It's true. After swallowing the grasses, you become resistant to fire and ice. That I raised my hand, watching the hot spring water flow down my arm and drip into the pool, surprised, but now wasn't the time to celebrate. My life was still in Dugu hands, and I needed to restore the scene as quickly as possible. There was a good chance Dugu would notice something was off with the well, and even if there was only a slight risk, I had to try. I filled the holes where the star anise ice grass and fiery apricot jiao had been, replaced them with the Yoxiang Qilua immortal, and covered everything with soil. I hope Dugu doesn't notice. That I sighed, worried. Dugu finding out I'd messed with his garden wouldn't end well. No matter what happened, I closed my eyes again, sat down, and began to meditate. Soul power gathered in the air, swirling into a small vortex that entered my body through my pores, continuously filling my dantian along my meridians. The sun was high in the sky when a green flash streaked across the sky. The sound of the arrival startled me, and I woke up from my meditation, opening my eyes to see two figures landing in front of me. They were both dressed in green, a man and a woman. It was Dugu and Dugu Yen. "Grandpa, why is Dai Yao here?" Seeing me in her grandfather's garden, Dugu Yen looked confused and questioned Dugu. I brought the kid to detoxify you." Dugu stroked his beard and chuckled, his eyes full of affection. "Him? He can detoxify me?" Dugu Yen pointed at me, surprised. They tried everything to deal with the accumulating toxins in their bodies, but nothing worked. How could a kid like me have a solution? "Don't doubt it. He has a physique that's immune to our green-scaled snake venom. Why not let him try?" Dugu explained patiently. "But, he's a student at Oakland Academy." "Grandpa, won't this cause trouble?" Dugu Yen grabbed Dugu arm, worry in her eyes. "Grandpa, I'm a titled Douluo. Even if Oakland has a problem with it, what can they do?" Dugu smiled calmly, his tone full of disdain for Oakland. "Even if I killed Dai Yao, would they dare say anything? If he can't detoxify me, can I kill him myself?" Dugu Yen asked Dugu, feigning a childlike innocence. Hatred flashed in her eyes. She still remembered the humiliation of me grabbing her by the neck during the battle at Oakland Academy. Now that I was in her grandfather's hands, she wanted to deal with me personally and wash away the shame, as long as I failed to detoxify her and held no more value. "No." Dugu shook his head, knowing how much Dugu Yen hated me. He gave up on the idea of me being his grandson-in-law, but I had to treat Dugu Yen next. If I knew that I was going to die for sure, I would probably fight to the death while treating her. He would be devastated if anything happened to Dugu Yen. Therefore, although he had sentenced me to death in his heart, he had to openly reject Dugu Yan's request to make me think there was still hope of survival. As he shook his head, he also conveyed his true intentions to Dugu Yen. With his love for her, taking someone's life couldn't be easier. Hearing the hidden meaning, Dugu Yen nodded in understanding, then glanced at me, as if I was an animal waiting to be slaughtered. Watching them casually discuss my murder, I shuddered. Damn it. Even if I treat Dugu Yen, I'm probably not going to survive. To stay alive, I can't completely solve the problem of accumulated toxins in her body. I can only treat the symptoms, not the root cause. After cleaning out the toxins once, as soon as she uses her martial soul, the toxins will accumulate again. Then, she'll still need me. That's my only chance. Chapter 95 Wuhun Palace and 7 Treasures Glaze. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 95 Wuhun Palace and 7 Treasure Glaze Tile School, Jiando Empire, Imperial City, Wuhun Temple, inside Platinum Bishop Salas's chambers. What? Dai Yao's missing. Salas shot to his feet. His teacup slipped from his grasp, clattering against the floor as it shattered into fragments. His eyes widened as he stared at the haggard Zhu Zhuqing. Yes. When I returned to our residence yesterday, I found Dai Yao gone from his usual training spot. He hasn't returned since. Zhu Zhuqing's eyes were bloodshot, her voice strained. She hadn't slept or had anything to drink since last night, waiting for Dai Yao. Damn it! Someone actually dares to mess with the Wuhun temple. This is an outrage. Salas spoke with forced calmness, but his anger was obvious. He began pacing, trying to figure out who had kidnapped Dai Yao. Headmaster Auckland is a soul saint of high caliber. To abduct Dai Yao without alerting him, the culprit would have to be at least a soul Douluo, possibly even a title Douluo. Soul Douluo level fighters weren't rare in Mtlno Imperial City. The title Douluo, however, were limited to the royal family, the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan, the Seven Treasure Glaze Tile School, and Dugu. Any of those four powers were possibilities. Dai Yao is the Xinghua prince. The Mtlno royal family could have targeted him out of spite. But Dai Yao had left the Dai family, so the smartest play for the royals would be to try to recruit him, not kill him. The same went for the Seven Treasure Glaze Tile School. He'd been keeping an eye on Ning Fengji, but the man had surprised him by sending his daughter to recruit Dai Yao. While they wanted talent, the Seven Treasure Glaze Tile School wasn't the type to snatch people in the night. Salas considered the options. That left Dugu. But Dai Yao and Dugu had no history. Why would Dugu have any motive? He was stumped. There hadn't been any ransom demands, meaning it wasn't about money. That put Dai Yao in real danger any longer, and it could be too late. Salas's eyes narrowed. He barked, "Someone," that the door swung open. A man in golden robes knelt on one knee, awaiting orders. Go. Alert every family and power base we have planted in Mtlno Imperial City. Search for Dai Yao. Find him, dead or alive, within 3 days. Nobody messes with the Wuhun temple. If Dai Yao dies, I'll make sure they pay the price. Salas slammed his fist on the table. The man in gold flinched. He glanced at Zhu Zhuqing, hesitated, and then spoke. Bishop, these agents in the Mtlno Empire cost a fortune. Isn't it risky to expose them for just one person? Salas cut him off with a wave of his hand. Enough. You don't understand what Dai Yao represents. Mobilize our people, keep it as quiet as possible, and prioritize your safety while you're searching. Yes. The man in gold bowed and withdrew. Salas sighed. He thought of Dai Yao's 1,000-year second soul ring during the competition and felt a pang of regret. If Dai Yao survived, who knew what he could accomplish? He has to live. Pulling himself together, Salas forced a smile and turned to Zhu Zhuqing. Zhuqing, get something to eat. You can't help anyone if you collapse from exhaustion. Zhu Zhuqing shook her head. Though weary, her eyes were resolute. I have to wait for him. Salas sighed. Those two were really something. Okay, let's head over to Auckland College, see if we can find any clues where he was taken. Point 7 Treasure Glaze Tile School. What? Dai Yao's missing. Ning Fengji looked at the messenger in surprise. What happened? Next to Ning Fengji stood a man with white hair and beard, yet strikingly handsome. He wore simple clothes, but an intensely sharp aura radiated from him. It was almost painful to look at him. It was Sword Douluo Qinshin, one of the 2 pillars of the 7 Treasure Glaze Tile School. Seeing Sword Douluo beside him, Ning Fengji regained his usual calm and explained. It's that talented kid I told you about. I sent Rongrong to recruit him, but he turned us down. The person I had at Auckland College just informed me that he's disappeared. Is that the young man you said had a 1,000-year second soul ring? Sword Douluo asked. The very same. Ning Fengji confirmed. That boy's talent is unmatched. If he joined our school, he would definitely become a title Douluo. He might even reach the level of a super Douluo, or possibly become an ultimate Douluo. His tone was excited, as if he could already see Dai Yao joining the 7 Treasure Glaze Tile School, rising to the ranks of title Douluo, and elevating the school's power. After I met him, I investigated his background. I discovered through the scale claw that he's actually the 4th prince of the Star Luo Empire. Since he's from the Star Luo Empire, wouldn't recruiting him be impossible? Chen Xin wondered. No. Due to the brutal succession system of the Xingluo Dai family, Dai Yao has defected from the Dai family. While it hasn't been officially announced, it's essentially a done deal. Betrayal is usually a red flag. No matter how talented someone is, associating with betrayal makes forces hesitant. Once a betrayer, always a betrayer, but learning that Dai Yao was from the Dai family eased Chen Xian's concerns. Given the Xingluo Dai family's cutthroat system, defection is understandable. Chen Xian nodded, sympathetic to Dai Yao's situation. The thought of family members killing each other was cold and cruel. Exactly. I also found that Dai Yao didn't have it easy in the Star Luo Empire. If we recruited him, trained him, and treated him well, he'd be loyal to our 7-treasure glazed tile school forever. Ning Fengji walked to the door, looked up at the gilded plaque above, and said. Several major forces are trying to recruit him. The Wuhun palace almost succeeded, and now his disappearance changes things. If we rescue him, we'll have a much better shot at bringing him into our school. Chen Xian smiled. I'd like to meet this young man. Rongrong complained that Dai Yao bullied her. If he doesn't join us, I'll use that as an excuse to teach him a lesson, just in case he ends up in the Wuhun temple and becomes a problem. Ning Fengji smiled gently. Let's head to Oakland College right now. All right. Chen Xian nodded, summoned a long sword at his feet, placed a hand on Ning Fengji's shoulder, and put his other hand behind him. Then they turned into a silver-white streak, shooting across the sky. Chapter 96 Sword Chi Mighty 3 Miles. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 96, Sword Energy dominates the landscape at Auckland College. Bishop Salas's arrival stirred things up. Led by Zhu Zhuqing, Salas made his way to Dai Yao's training spot. He surveyed the area, a puzzled look on his face. This is where Dai Yao trains. Doesn't seem like it fits his spirit. Zhu Zhuqing pointed to a nearby waterfall. Dai Yao's been meditating under that waterfall. Plus, there's a forest around here, which suits his spirit pretty well. Meditating under the waterfall? Salas's eyes widened, a flicker of surprise in them. He considered it for a moment, then understanding dawned. That's actually brilliant. Meditating against the force of the waterfall toughens you up against the pressure of higher-level soul masters. It also solidifies your own soul power. Impressed, Salas grew even more fond of Dai Yao when Zhu Zhuqing mentioned he had been training like this for over 3 years. Dai Yao was not only naturally gifted but also incredibly dedicated. Given enough time, he would be a force to be reckoned with. This reinforced his commitment to rescuing Dai Yao. Composing himself, he immediately began searching for clues. He took to the skies, scanning the area from above. Spotting something amiss, he ordered his team to launch a full-scale search. An hour later. Anything yet? Zhu Zhuqing asked anxiously. Salas was equally anxious. Despite their best efforts, they were still coming up empty. His 10 men, along with several soul beasts used for tracking scents, were exhausted. He tried to reassure Zhu Zhuqing. It's all right. I'm confident the Spirit Hall will bring Dai Yao back safe and sound. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing sound echoed in the sky. A silver streak flashed across the horizon, its intense aura almost blinding. It landed gently in front of Salas. As the dust settled, Salas recognized the figures and his eyes narrowed. Ning Fengji and Chen Xian. Damn 7-treasure glazed tile school. They always have to stick their noses in where they don't belong. Ning Fengji smiled warmly, like the winter sun, creating a sense of comfort. It's been a while, Bishop Salas. Salas masked his irritation and greeted Ning Fengji with a smile, acting as if they were old friends. Sect Master Ning, always a pleasure. After a brief exchange, he turned his attention to the other figure, bowing slightly. Sword Douluo. Chen Xian merely gave Salas a cold glance and a grunt, barely acknowledging him. While Salas might be a platinum bishop in the Spirit Hall, titled Douluos, especially those like Chen Xian who had reached level 96, occupied the highest echelon of the Douluo continent, demanding respect even from those in positions of power. I wonder, Sect Master Ning, what brings you to Auckland College? Salas asked. I heard about Dai Yao's disappearance and thought I'd come to investigate, Ning Fengji replied with a smile. As they spoke, Chen Xian scanned the surroundings, closing his eyes. He then released waves of energy, with himself at the center. The wind picked up violently, making it hard for anyone to keep their eyes open. Only those at or above the Soul Saint level could maintain their composure. Then, Chen Xian let out a soft sigh and vanished in a flash. 100 meters away, near a tree, Chen Xian floated in the air, channeling his soul power to examine the trunk. Slowly, a pair of dark footprints became visible on one of the thicker branches. The dark color wasn't dirt or dust, but a corrosive residue. Chen Xian focused on the dark footprints, a faint smile playing on his lips. Fengji. Let's go. Hearing Chen Xian's call, Ning Fengji smiled, immediately understanding that Sword Douluo had found a clue and identified the culprit. Time to save Dai Yao. Damn it, Salas cursed under his breath. He had deployed so many people to search for clues, yet they had found nothing. But the 7 Treasure Glaze Tile School had uncovered something almost instantly. Was this proof that the Spirit Hall was inferior to the 7 Treasure Glaze Tile School? Enraged, he was also impressed by Sword Douluo Chen Xian's sharp observation skills. He truly lived up to his title. Despite being a Contra, he hadn't noticed anything in all this time. In other words, the person who kidnapped Dai Yao was a title Douluo. He followed Ning Fengji to the tree. When he saw the dark footprints, he immediately knew who was behind this and his pupils constricted. Dugu Bo dares to lay a hand on the Spirit Hall's people. How audacious. When I got back to Spirit Hall not long ago, Zhu Douluo was always talking about you. When Zhu Douluo comes to Tiando Empire, you will have to carry him around without eating. Salas cursed to himself. Fengji, hop on. Chen Xian stood on his sword, gesturing for him to join him. As Ning Fengji stepped onto the ancient sword, the two transformed into a silver streak, cutting through the sky. Immediately, the sky was crisscrossed with streaks of sword energy, merging into a single, massive blade, emitting a deafening clang. It carried an endless killing aura, stretching for miles. Like a sword dragon, it soared through the sky, tearing through the clouds toward Sunset Forest. Suddenly, countless people in Tiando Imperial City sensed the unrestrained sword energy above them and looked up in astonishment. What is that? That was Sword Douluo's attack. Someone with knowledge exclaimed. Who did he offend? They must have really ticked off Sword Douluo. Sword Douluo's departure left Salas anxious. He reassured Zhu Zhuqing, then nodded to the man in the gold robe next to him. The man, responding immediately, summoned his martial soul. The 8 soul rings brought a wave of pressure, appearing before everyone. Despite his attempts to control it, those nearby couldn't help but bend under the immense soul power. The 7th black soul ring glowed brightly. Under the dark light, the golden-robed man transformed into a giant, majestic eagle. Salas jumped onto its back, turned to Zhu Zhuqing and reassured. Don't worry, the Spirit Hall will bring Dai Yao back. Zhu Zhuqing nodded, her mental state drained. As the words left his lips, the giant eagle beat its wings, stirring up the air, swaying the surrounding forest. With a screech, it soared upwards, flying in the direction of Sword Douluo. The strong wind whipped at Salas's clothes. Damn the 7 Treasure Glaze Tile School. He cursed internally. Don't ruin things for the Spirit Hall. Or you'll pay the price. His Holiness the Pope has been planning for years. Soon, the so-called second sect in the world will lose its name. And you, old poison, your days are numbered. A cold glint flashed in Salas's eyes. Chapter 97 Fragrant Treatment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Edited content. The sun dipped below the trees, casting the valley in a fiery glow. How are you going to do this? Dugu Yen asked. To channel my soul power, I need to place my hands on your back, which means you'll need to remove your top, Dai Yao said flatly. Are you looking for a death wish? Dugu Yen snapped, her eyebrows arching. She was a young woman and not happy about this request. I could do it through your clothes, but that layer will severely reduce my control. If you don't mind the risk of a mishap, and potentially causing your soul power to explode, then fine by me. A glint of coldness flashed in Dai Yao's eyes. You. Dugu Yen was furious but felt trapped. A soul power explosion was no joke. For soul masters with higher levels, their bodies could probably endure serious injury, but for a great soul master like her, it could be fatal. And she certainly wouldn't bet her life on it. She glanced back to see her grandfather giving a subtle nod. Dai Yao couldn't see this. Dugu Yen glared coldly at Dai Yao, as if he was already a dead man. Fine, but keep your eyes to yourself. If you dare to look, I'll gouge them out myself. Dai Yao felt a chill. Even through 2 layers of clothing, he could manipulate his soul power with pinpoint accuracy, let alone one. He'd made the request to test whether the grandfather and granddaughter intended to let him live. Their easy agreement made it clear they didn't. He was a dead man walking the second he'd cured Dugu Yen. After a dead man sees all, what does it matter? Dai Yao grew more anxious. He needed to stall for time, hoping the spirit hall would send someone. He glanced at the spring, his hopes plummeting. I'll have to focus on treating Dugu Yen as best I can to buy time. If all else fails, I'll jump into the eyes of ice and fire. Dugu Bo slowly scanned the area. His gaze lingered on the herbs and his eyes sharpened as he noticed they were missing. He turned to Dai Yao and said in a low voice, "Did you touch my herb garden?" Sweat beaded on Dai Yao's forehead. I brushed against them accidentally. He cursed his luck. He'd known Dugu Bo would eventually notice. He'd had to eat the star anise ice grass and fiery apricot to survive, and he was still clinging to the hope that he'd found a way out. If I hadn't eaten them, I'd be a goner for sure. Dugu Bo considered the youth. This kid knows the secrets of this place. I've tried those missing herbs. They're deadly poisonous. And yet he touched them, and he's alive. His eyes gleamed. After Yanyan's been healed, I'll find a way to force the secret out of him. The coldness vanished, replaced by a warm smile. Touching the herbs is no problem. If you can cure Yanyan, not only will I let you live, but I might even give you half of my herb garden. Dai Yao rolled his eyes at Dugu Bo's empty promises. What good is a herb garden when you're dead? Then let's get started, Dugu Yen said with a sniff. Dai Yao nodded helplessly. Both he and Dugu Yen turned to Dugu Bo. Your granddaughter is about to take off her clothes. Do you really want to be here for this? Dai Yao said. Dugu Bo gave a light cough, stepped onto a nearby rock, and with a few leaps, reached the entrance to the valley, where he'd been watching Dai Yao's pile of stones. He wasn't about to leave Dugu Yen alone with Dai Yao. Yanyan's no match for him. I can't stray too far. I can't afford to let him get away. He kept a close watch on the spring. Alright, time to get this over with. As soon as Dugu Bo was out of sight, Dai Yao said sharply to Dugu Yen. She narrowed her eyes. I'm warning you again, keep your eyes to yourself, or I'll have my eyes gouged out, right? Anything else you want to add? Dai Yao interrupted. You. Dugu Yen scoffed. He was a dead man anyway. He immediately untied her belt and slowly removed her green shirt, revealing skin as white as jade. As she reached down to take off her undergarments, Dai Yao stopped her. Wait, just the shirt is fine. Dugu Yen froze, a blush rising on her face. Even though she'd prepared herself, the reality of undressing in front of a man still made her feel awkward. Okay, let's begin, she said, drawing a deep breath to calm herself. Dai Yao focused, picturing a green light. Within his mind, the primordial green lotus swayed. He channeled his soul power, gathering it in his palm, and carefully infused it with a sliver of the green light, masking its presence before it entered Dugu Yen's body. He didn't hesitate. Once Dugu Yen was ready, he placed his hands on her smooth back. He felt her body tremble slightly, but he ignored it. I have no interest in this femme fatale. Zhu Zhuqing's better than her anyway. He took a deep breath, and his soul power slowly flowed into her body through his palms. Under his careful control, the soul power, shrouded in the green light, moved cautiously through her meridians. Eventually, the mass of soul power reached the bone marrow where the toxins had accumulated. Dai Yao lost himself in the task. With the aid of the green light, he meticulously began to break down the toxins within her bone marrow, particle by particle. As the toxins were neutralized, Dugu Yen felt a wave of warmth, her body began to tremble, and she couldn't suppress a soft cry. Hold still, Dai Yao's eyes flew open. Because of her trembling, he was losing control. Frowning, he snapped, and Dugu Yen stilled. Dai Yao worked at a snail's pace to remove the last traces of poison. Time seemed to slow to a crawl. Sweat dripped from his brow, wetting Dugu Yan's back. His situation was worsening with every moment. Suddenly, a brilliant light flashed across the sky, a terrifying intent to kill. Chapter 98 Sword Douluo vs Dugu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 98 Sword Douluo vs Dugu. Above, a sword dragon materialized, its sword intent piercing the heavens. Everyone craned their necks, astonished by the sudden change. Dai Yao withdrew his soul power from Dugu Yen, paused to catch his breath, and then exhaled, relief flooding him. Finally, he glanced up at the sword dragon, noticing a 7-story pagoda hovering above it, radiating light in every color imaginable. Dai Yao's eyes narrowed. No way. The 7 treasures glazed sect. Sword Douluo and sect leader Ning Fengji himself. Why are they here first? What about the spirit hall? The fact that Sword Douluo showed up with such fanfare at Dugubo's medicine garden, he couldn't be sure it was for him. If this is because of me, if they sent Sword Douluo, then I'll be in debt to the 7 treasures glazed sect forever. As Dai Yao's soul power receded, Dugu Yen felt a sudden chill on her back. Dai Yao's hand was gone. What happened, that she missed the comforting warmth already? Opening her eyes, she asked, confused. She focused on the toxins in her body. 1/10 of them were already gone. Just as elation began to bubble up, she sensed something else. She looked up and gasped at the overwhelming sword energy in the sky. Then, she realized she was practically naked. She almost screamed, but a warmth enveloped her back, like a layer of clothing. Turning, she saw Dai Yao, who had removed his shirt and draped it over her. Stunned, warmth bloomed in her heart. Remembering her previous treatment of Dai Yao, she looked away, her voice softer than before. Why are you doing this? Dai Yao's expression hardened. I remember everything you put me through. Don't think I'm not holding a grudge. But I'm not going to strip you bare and leave you half naked. That's low, even for me. I will make you pay for what I've suffered these last few days. Dai Yao's icy gaze sent a shiver down Dugu Yan's spine. She bit her lip, unable to respond. Go get dressed, Dai Yao said, glancing away. Dugu Yen stood, gave Dai Yao one last searching look, and hurried off to find a secluded spot to change. Watching her leave, he sighed in relief and hurried to the ice and fire yin-yang well, cautiously eyeing the sky. Sword Douluo's arrival didn't guarantee his safety. To prevent Dugu from doing something drastic, he positioned himself near the well. If things went south, he'd jump right in. The combined poison of the 2 wells could buy him some time, even against a tidal Douluo. Stay calm. Dai Yao thought, as the sword dragon appeared. Dugu, who was standing among the rocks at the mountain pass, rushed towards him. Soul power erupted from his body like a tsunami, crashing against the surrounding forest. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 black. 9 soul rings spun around Dugu. A terrifying aura emanated, causing countless soul beasts in Sunset Forest to cower. Dugubo's serpentine eyes narrowed, staring at the hovering sword dragon. He was wary. Sword Douluo Chen Sect Master Ning, what brings you two to my humble medicine garden? Chen chuckled. His entire being felt like a sword poised to pierce the sky, its sharp edge barely concealed. Dugu, hand over Dai Yao, and we'll call it even. Refuse, and my 7-kill sword will have a chat with your green-scaled snake. That he was tired of sparring with that bone dragon, and he needed a change. Dugu hesitated, glancing at Dai Yao near the ice and fire yin-yang well. Why would the 7 treasures glazed sect stick their necks out for Dai Yao? Could he be one of them? But why would someone from the 7 treasures glazed sect go to that podunk college in Auckland? and how did they even know he was here? Did they give something away when they captured him, but he couldn't let Dai Yao go. He was the key to curing Bai Lin's poison. Even if he was no match for Sword Douluo Chen, he had to try to hold on to Dai Yao. Who is this Dai Yao? What makes him so important that the Seven Treasures Glazed sect is willing to send Sword Douluo himself to rescue him? Ning Fengji, standing behind Chen, offered a gentle smile. While Dai Yao isn't directly affiliated with us, our Seven Treasures Glazed sect is determined to ensure his safety. Though his tone was soft, his words were unyielding. Dugu Bo's heart grew heavier. The Seven Treasures Glazed sect wouldn't budge, but he couldn't afford to lose Dai Yao, that kid's too clever for his own good. He knew I wouldn't let him go, and he was stalling, waiting for a rescue. If I let him go, there's no guarantee he'll help Yan. We can't let him go, decided, he would take his chances against Sword Douluo. I must ask you to leave. I will not release Dai Yao. Dugu Bo's voice was hoarse. Looks like you want to test my 7-kill sword, then. Chen shook his head, a strand of white hair drifting across his forehead. In the blink of an eye, he opened his eyes. They burned with an intense sharpness, and he unleashed a blade of pure intent at lightning speed. Dugu Bo's face turned grim. He leaped, narrowly avoiding the attack. The sword intent struck the mountain pass where Dugu Bo had been standing, the impact exploding with a deafening roar. The sword intent had carved a massive hole into the pass. Rocks showered down, some falling outside the pass, others plummeting toward the ice and fire yin-yang well. Dugu Bo soared into the sky, then looked down. His face contorted in rage. His precious medicine garden was below. And his granddaughter. He started to descend to intercept the falling rocks, but then Sword Douluo Chen's sword energy came crashing toward him. Dugu Bo's eyes turned crimson. Chen, you've gone too far. His seventh soul ring blazed, and Dugu Bo's gaunt frame began to swell, stretching and expanding. In an instant, Dugu Bo transformed into a jade-green snake nearly 100 feet long. Rhombus-shaped emerald scales coated his body, turning him into a living emerald serpent. The majority of his body stood erect, scales flared. Emerald eyes locked on Chen in the sky. He spoke haltingly, and a thick green mist swirled around him. It was Dugu Bo's seventh soul skill. The true form of his spirit, the green-scaled Snake King. He stood his ground, neither dodging nor weaving, facing the storm of sword energy. On the horizon, Salus, riding his eagle, saw the terrifying scene unfold. In the distance, a massive green snake rose into the sky, facing a converging column of sword energy that formed a funnel as it descended. The world was divided into two colors, silver and green, the green of the green-scaled Snake King on the ground, the silver of the swirling sword energy filling the sky. Sensing the immense fluctuations of soul power, Salus shouted anxiously, "Lao Jin, hurry!" That the eagle beat its wings harder, its fifth soul ring glowing. With a piercing screech, it shot forward like lightning. Chapter 99. I want to save the flower, do you believe it? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 99. I said I was saving the flower, you gotta believe me. Dai Yao couldn't see the tidal Douluo level battle raging in the sky. All he saw was a hailstorm of boulders plummeting towards him, falling from hundreds of feet. They blazed with a faint red glow as they tore through the air. It looked like the end of the world descending on the ice and fire eyes. Ah! Dugu Yen, now redressed, screamed at the apocalyptic sight. Pipe down! Dai Yao snapped, whirling around to face her. If those rocks actually hit their mark, the ice and fire eyes could be history. All those precious herbs, gone in an instant. And not only that, they were smack dab in the middle of the impact zone. He wasn't just trying to save the ice and fire eyes, he was saving his own skin, too. Soul power surged through him. He summoned his martial soul, wings sprouting from his back. He crouched low, gathering his strength, and the purple soul ring blazed. Countless specks of white light coalesced in front of Dai Yao's mouth. The sheer power of it made Dugu Yan's face pale. Are you nuts? What's a great soul master? She started to say, but what happened next left her speechless. Right then and there, the terrifying white tiger light wave shot toward the sky, a searing hiss accompanying its flight. It slammed into several of the largest boulders, shattering them into smaller pieces. Dai Yao cursed under his breath. The white tiger fierce light wave changed direction, obliterating even more of the falling debris. Damn it, that time was too short. Even if he gave it his all, he could only take out most of the rocks. Some were still falling fast. Dugu finally snapped out of it. She started using her own soul skills to try and nudge the remaining boulders away from the ice and fire eyes. Dai Yao was panting now, completely drained. It was the first time he'd unleashed the white tiger fierce light wave without holding anything back. 80% of his soul power was gone. The remaining small rocks rained down, splashing harmlessly into the pools of ice and fire. Thanks to Dai Yao's efforts, the damage was minimal. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed. One of the larger stones wasn't headed directly for the ice and fire eyes. Instead, it was going to hit the cliff first, then, pulled by gravity, tumble down. Because of its indirect path, both Dai Yao and Dugu had completely missed it. The stone was headed straight for the Youxiang Qilua immortal product, and right next to the Youxiang Qilua immortal product, Dugu was focused on using her soul skills on the rocks in the sky. Heads up, Dai Yao yelled. That Youxiang Qilua immortal product was priceless. Nothing could happen to it. If there was any way to repay the Qibao glazed sect for saving him, it had to be with the Youxiang Qilua immortal product. Hearing Dai Yao's shout, Dugu glanced back, her eyes widening, her face turning white. The boulder was hurtling towards her at terminal velocity. Explosive step was used to shield both the Youxiang Qilua immortal product and Dugu. His two soul rings flared at the same time. The white tiger fierce light wave shot forward, and a white barrier shimmered into existence in front of him, but with such little time to charge, the white tiger fierce light wave barely dented the boulder. The rock slammed into the white light shield. After a few heartbeats, the shield shattered, and Dai Yao was sent flying. But thanks to the two soul skills, the boulder stopped just short. Dai Yao went flying, spitting out a mouthful of blood. When Dugu saw Dai Yao standing in front of her, her heart skipped a beat. Without thinking, she caught Dai Yao as he fell, letting out a small gasp. They both tumbled to the ground, rolling to bleed off the momentum. Dai Yao realized he'd landed somewhere soft, and a delicate fragrance tickled his nose. Are you okay? Dugu looked down at Dai Yao in her arms, her voice laced with worry. What was going on? He lifted his head and found himself cradled in Dugu arms. That soft feeling, seeing the worry etched on Dugu face, Dai Yao frowned, completely bewildered. Why was she acting like this? Then it all came flooding back, and he looked over at the Youxiang Qilua immortal product. Seeing that it was unharmed, he breathed a sigh of relief. Dai Yao scrambled to his feet, looked at the stunned Dugu, pointed at the Youxiang Qilua immortal product, and stammered, I was trying to save that flower. You gotta believe me. Dugu smiled faintly. Thank you for saving me. If that rock had hit her, she would have been seriously injured, if not worse. When she'd seen Dai Yao step in front of her without a second thought, it had really gotten to her. Not long ago, she had pressed Yu Tianheng to show how he felt, but his silence had been crushing. If you were in danger, would Yu Tianheng stand in front of you? The question echoed in her mind. Now, the shadow of Yu Tianheng began to fade, replaced by the man standing before her, but looking at Dai Yao's serious, almost hostile gaze, Dugu heart sank a little. Are you serious? She asked, a hint of doubt in her voice. Yes. So, you're saying I'm not as important as a flower? There was an edge to Dugu voice now. Dai Yao nodded. Guys are lined up from one end of Tiando City to the other just to get a date with me, and you're telling me I'm not as good as a flower? Dugu chest rose and fell as she spoke angrily. Why would you even think I'd be interested in you? Talk about being full of yourself. Don't forget, you were just screaming at me to kill you. If I hadn't gotten lucky, I'd be a dead man right now. Dai Yao retorted icily. Dugu was taken aback. She bit her lip, her eyes complicated, wanting to say something, but unable to find the words. Up above, the battle between the two titled Douluo raged on. Sword Douluo Qinshin, radiating ethereal grace, stood with one hand behind his back, wielding his sword with the other. The sword intent that filled the sky surged like a vast ocean, endlessly crashing against the green-scaled Snake King coiled on the ground. The jade-scale Snake King was a mess. His emerald scales were broken, and pale green blood oozed out. His once bright green eyes were now dull and lifeless, and even his 9 soul rings had lost their luster. Time to wrap this up, Chen Xian declared calmly from above. He brought his fingers together like a sword, his eyes flashed, and the 7th soul ring ignited. 7th soul skill. 7 kill true body. A simple long sword appeared in the sky, dripping with killing intent. When the 7 kill sword materialized, every soul beast in the sunset forest, no matter how old or how intelligent, felt a primal fear grip them. They fled in terror from the blade. When Qisha moved, the world seemed to light up. Everyone had to shield their eyes, and agonized snake cries filled the air. When Salus opened his eyes nearby, his expression was one of sheer horror. The 30-meter-long green-scaled Snake King was impaled through the heart by the 7-kill sword and pinned to the ground, writhing in agony. I surrender, the snake rasped out between labored breaths, barely clinging to life. The 7-kill sword flew back into the sky, transforming back into a human form. Chen Xian clasped his hands behind his back, a light sheen of sweat on his brow. Too weak. Nowhere near as good as old bones. Chen Xian shook his head dismissively, his tone laced with disappointment. This Dugu bow wasn't even a worthy opponent. The difference between the level 92 poison Douluo and the level 96 sword Douluo was frightening. Chapter 100 Ice and Fire 2 Eyes obtained. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 100 Ice and Fire Eyes acquired. Chen Xian slowly reined in his soul power, and the sword energy that had filled the sky dissolved into starlight, disappearing as if night had fallen, leaving countless stars twinkling. Ning Fengji, riding his flying sword, approached Chen Xian. He gazed at the ravaged ice and fire eyes and asked, "Uncle Jian, was that sword strike aimed at the mountain pass deliberate?" Chen Xian chuckled, "Yep. Just giving that kid Dai Yao a scare. He was down in the basin. Rom's been complaining about him. The nerve of him, bullying her. He needed a lesson." Ning Fengji sighed, helpless. Uncle Jian and Uncle Gu were amazing, but they spoiled Rom rotten, which made her fearless, and worried him. Every time he tried to correct her, those two titled Douluos would block him. "Uncle Jian, weren't you worried Dai Yao might get killed by those exploding rocks?" Ning Fengji asked. Chen Xian's eyes turned cold. "If he's a genius, he can handle a few pebbles. If not, what kind of genius is he?" Just then, the Spirit Hall duo finally arrived. The giant eagle was panting, its chest heaving, clearly exhausted. Salus, perched on the eagle, bowed to Ning Fengji and Chen Xian, acknowledging their presence, before anxiously peering into the basin below. Seeing Dai Yao safe, he breathed a sigh of relief. Sword Douluo. Chen Xian scoffed at Salus's greeting. "You're slow. You barely managed to cover a tenth of the ground I did." Salus, looking embarrassed, gave an awkward smile. "Of course, I can't compare to Sword Saint Chen Xian. The Contra, in its true form as a giant eagle, had flown as fast as possible, but Sword Douluo had arrived long ago, even fighting Dugu Bo in the meantime. His part in rescuing Dai Yao? Non-existent. If Dai Yao got any bright ideas and joined the 7 treasure Glaze tile school, that'd be a problem. Salus thought with growing anxiety. The green-scaled Snake King's body, pierced at its weak point, slowly shrank, reverting to the form of Dugu Bo. He was a mess, hair disheveled, blood trickling from his mouth, face pale. Ignoring his injuries, Dugu Bo rushed to the edge of the basin, peering down into the ice and fire eyes. Seeing Dugu Yen unharmed, he exhaled in relief. He went to the edge of the spring, looked at Dugu Yen with pity and guilt, then hugged her tightly, choking back tears. "I'm so sorry, Yen. It was all Grandpa's fault. I almost lost you." He and Dugu Yen were the last of the Bailan lineage. If Dugu Yen had died here, he'd never forgive himself. If he hadn't been showing off, picking a fight with Sword Douluo. Chen Xian, Dugu Yen would never have been in danger in the first place. Dugu Yen, seeing Dugu Bo covered in bruises, looked sad, tears welling in her eyes. She was overcome with emotion. She'd never seen her powerful grandfather so badly beaten. All she could manage was, "It's okay, Grandpa." After calming down, Dugu Bo suddenly realized something. With Dugu Yan's strength as a control-type soul master, how had she survived the rockslide? He asked hesitantly, Yen, how did you survive?" Dugu Yen glanced at Dai Yao with a complicated expression, avoiding his gaze, biting her lip. Finally, she whispered, "Dai Yao saved me." Dai Yao? Dugu Bo was stunned, his eyes locking onto Dai Yao, a look of surprise on his face. He couldn't believe it. He'd threatened Dai Yao. Dugu Yen even wanted to kill him. He was sure Dai Yao hated them, and now he had risked his life for Dugu Yen. Even though he was devious, he always repaid a kindness. In the original story, after Tang San cured him, when Xiao Wu revealed herself to be a soul beast, he was prepared to save Tang San, but he was blocked by Zhu Douluo and Ghost Douluo. With a complex expression, he approached Dai Yao, bowing deeply in gratitude. "Thank you for saving my granddaughter. If there's anything you want, I'll do my best to grant it. Even if it's a soul bone, I can get you a few." Titled Douluo bowing to a teenage boy. Unheard of. How could someone who stood at the top of the continent's soul master pyramid pay such respect to a young soul master? But Dai Yao turned away, glancing at Dugu Bo coldly. "No thanks." Being held prisoner by Dugu Bo, he remembered the torment, the daily struggle for survival. Did a simple apology erase all that suffering? Standing by the ice and fire eyes, planning to jump in, he waited to anger Dugu Bo, to provoke a fatal attack, so the sword Douluo would finish him. Seeing Dai Yao reject Dugu Bo's apology, Dugu Yen said angrily, "Dai Yao, don't be so rude. My grandfather's a powerful titled Douluo. His apology is a huge honor. Don't think saving me gives you the right to do whatever you want." Dai Yao snorted, looking at Dugu Yen as if she were an idiot. Dugu Bo sighed. "Boy, I've wronged you these past few days. Name your price. As long as you forgive me." When he hugged Dugu Yen, he'd secretly checked her condition. The toxins in her body had decreased by 1/10, that meant Dai Yao could treat Dugu Yen, he could break the curse of the Bailan lineage. He was overjoyed, but then he realized he had severely offended Dai Yao. To get him to continue treating Dugu Yen, he had to earn his forgiveness. Seeing Dugu Bo wasn't angry, Dai Yao felt disappointed. He glanced at the herbs in the ice and fire eyes and an idea formed. He'd suffered enough, he deserved something for his troubles. Besides, sword Douluo was overhead. What better time to lay down demands, now that Dugu Bo was being so nice? How could he know if he'd keep his word later? Dai Yao cleared his throat. "Since you asked, Senior Dugu, I have a condition. I want the herbs from this garden and a soul tool that can store them." Dugu Bo hesitated. This garden was his treasure, but thinking of the curse, he gritted his teeth. "Okay. If it means you'll forgive me, the garden is yours." If the garden was gone, he could always find another, but if life was gone, everything else would be meaningless.